one. Woohoo!
Woo, we're live!
We are live. Welcome. This is Finn Wycherley of Supersize Media, live and direct to you from Bonnie, Edinburgh, which is, as usual, grey and overcast, despite the rest of the UK being as sunny as sin can be. But we did have some fantastic weather yesterday. Hey, Ayo, how are you doing? So let's get on with the introductions. We've got a busy broadcast today. We're going to be with you for half an hour and give you lots and lots of tips and tricks on 5 key mindset transformation information to help you build your brand and website in 2018. But we're not going to get started yet. We're just going to be welcoming our special guest, the one and only Miss Hayley Steele. Woo!
Hello, everybody. Hello.
How are you doing, Hayley?
Yes, good. This is very nerve-wracking for me.
Yeah, I know this is your first time doing a Facebook Live.
Yeah, so I need to watch my effing and jeffing.
Nice one. Well, I don't know. I mean, we can just keep it real, eh? We don't need to be I'm not a big fan of highly polished, obviously. So just keeping it real and letting everybody ask the questions and everything as well is going to be amazing. And so the whole purpose is to make sure that it's live and interactive and people get a whole bunch of information that's going to keep them stimulated for the period of this broadcast, but also that they've got loads and loads of information that they can go away with and take back to their web designer or their brand designer and say, hey, what the hell are you doing? Please give me the right up-to-date information that I need to build my brand in 2018. All right, so Ayo, tell me, where are you from? I'm just looking at your profile there. Whereabouts are you from? Ayo, I can't see whereabouts you're from. Anybody who's attending the broadcast, let's see where you're from, and just type it into the comments. We can't hear anybody else. The only people we can hear is obviously myself and Miss Hayley. But if you type it into the comments, we'll be able to share the comments with you and everybody. All right, so first of all, we're going to do some quick quizzes. I'm going to do a quick quiz for Miss Hayley, first of all, which would be very easy. It's just basically tell us your full name, tell us what you do, and tell us what makes you qualified to talk about website and branding. Hayley, your starter for 10 starts now.
So my name's Hayley Steele, and I've been working for Supersize Media for a few years now. And basically my role is a brand and website designer. And for the past couple of years, good few years now, I've worked with many different businesses to help, improve their brand appearance, whether that's through logo design, packaging, website design. And we're going to be talking about the whole brand process, actually, because, a lot of people get confused about that. But we'll get into that when more people join in.
Fantastic. And tell me, how did you get into learning about all this kind of digital skills? How did you develop your skills?
Well, funnily enough, my background was actually traditional art. So, painting, illustrating, etc. But and then I kind of moved into graphic design when I was at college after I did art and illustration, and it was just like a light bulb moment for me. I felt like it was kind of a combination of the two, but with less messy paint, which of course what I loved. And it was just the digital space actually, and back in the day where print was still king, a lot of that was around print, so like business cards, packaging, all that sorts of thing. And then went to university and did design and digital arts. And that was a very innovated course, I think. It kind of took a lot of digital kind of from the screen to 3D. I mean, we did interactive experiences and yeah, it was amazing. You know, you can see, I think it was like the latest Samsung advertisement. They created this whole experience when they were promoting Samsung Galaxy, I think it was. And, you know, the advert came on, it was just like this big live broadcast almost of this launch. And that's the type of thing I'm talking about. It was real life marketing, I suppose, in a way, yeah, creating interactive experiences. Um, but then I kind of moved away from that and social media, you know, that whole marketing agency was definitely where I ended up. And I still got to do what I love, which was designing company websites, their brand. And yeah, that's how I got into it. Sorry if I waffled there a wee bit.
No, it's fantastic. It's really insightful. I wanted to ask you if you, because obviously we're going to be talking about the kind of things that you need for 2018, but why do you think there's a big change? I mean, what were the priorities for branding and website design that you needed, you know, say 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, compared to what you need nowadays? Just roughly.
Roughly, well, I mean, now you need to think about all the devices that people are using to visit your website. And so the number one thing to remember is it needs to be dynamic and it needs to be optimized. Because, you know, think about the the layout of a dynamic or a static website, sorry, is is just not fit for mobile purpose. You know, you have to pinch and it's very difficult for the person to navigate through. And, you know, if people are going to find it difficult, um, just basically just to find out who you are and, you know, your services, stuff like that, then they're not going to bother with all that faff. So it needs to be optimized for mobile. That would be number one, especially if you're going into marketing. Marketing, you know, you are on social media. It definitely has to be optimized for mobile.
Fantastic. And so when you were doing your training, you know, they were busy teaching you all about kind of digital websites because everybody knew about digital. But there's a big change between building those kind of static websites from 10 years ago to digital websites for the internet, and then actually creating ones that are going to be useful for social media, because obviously a lot of website people, they don't have social media in their mind. They've got, you know, barely any social media presence. They don't spend particularly a great amount of time, so they don't necessarily understand in what way the website needs to be incredibly responsive to the requirements of social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, in terms of a static website, it is just HTML based. And basically, what that means is it's all coded and then it's shoved up online. And there's no way for the business or the company, unless they've got that coding ability, that knowledge, then they're not going to be able to change that. And with social media now, your website needs to be what's the word I'm looking for? Um, it needs to have but basically the business owners need to be able to go in and keep it fresh. You know, if we're talking about, it needs to be remarkable basically. You know, you need to have up to date content, which a static website's just not going to do. And I loved how you described it previously. It was like a dusty business card, and that's exactly what they are. You know, businesses need to take more control and definitely learn more actually about it. I think it's a necessity in this age. You know, I know technology can be scary, But at the end of the day, just go in, learn, and that's basically what the digital age is all about, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that point that you're making about the ease of use is pretty crucial because, again, a big difference between the past and the present in terms of the website and the relationship with the owner or the owner's team is back in the old days, you got a website built by a digital person, a website designer, then normally that was it. That was it once and for all. And you wouldn't, if you needed to get any changes, you'd have to pay the web designer to get into your website and make those necessary changes. Whereas nowadays, you need to have a website that is going to be totally updatable by anybody who's got zero digital skills.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's absolutely crucial because all the websites nowadays need to be very, very lively, need to be having lots and lots of updates and blogs and videos and social media traffic coming in and out and ads coming in and out and everything. So if you're going to be chasing up your web designer every week or even every day or every 2 days, that's going to cost a business a fortune. So I think the key for nowadays is to think about actually having a website that's going to be so easy to use and update that even anybody with zero digital skills will be able to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's definitely one of the things that we as a company integrate into what we do and for our clients. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so normally what we do, for example, is we will, when we're finishing off the website, obviously everybody's really loving the design, they're loving the functionality, they're loving the navigation, they're loving how it's replicated throughout all the different kind of platforms as well, because obviously the design needs to be harmonious, whether it's on Twitter or whether it's on your email. But then what we recommend that everybody should be doing is that you should have some tutorials on how to use your website so that they keep those tutorials so that any new person coming into their business who's going to be in charge of updating the website, updating the comment, etc., they can just refer to those kind of training manual videos whenever they want to.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, well, maybe I'm just making a presumption here. Then again, I don't want to make any presumptions. But, the system that we put in place is, I think the average Joe could pick it up, Obviously, I'm there to help. But yeah, I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, user videos should be standard before anybody signs off. All right, so let's take a pause there and see if anybody's got any questions. So, Ayo, where are you from? I'm still waiting to hear where you're from.
And is he driving?
What's that?
Is he driving?
It looks like he's in the car, yeah. All right, so let's zoom on and let's cover some of the 5 key mindset transformations to build your brand and website. All right, so Haley, what's your next point that you want to raise with us on how people need to think and make sure that when they're going to speak to the web designer, they have a very specific brief in mind. They have a very specific list of what they want to achieve, because the web designers will come back to you and say, okay, look, we gave you what you asked for. So unless you ask for specific stuff, you're not going to get the stuff you require. So things that we've been saying so far is like, having a dynamic website as opposed to a static website, making sure it's optimized for mobile, and that should be in the specifications of the brief that you're looking for. You need to have it so that it's easy to upload for people who are not particularly digitally literate. You also need to have video training kind of user manuals so that any new person coming into the business won't be sitting there completely lost, not knowing how to actually update any information. So all these are kind of key aspects for making sure your website and your brand is effective. And not forgetting making sure it's optimized for all the different platforms. That design and that website needs to be harmonious throughout all the different platforms where the client is potentially going to see you. Because nowadays, because in the old days, I mean, the client would only ever find you on website. Nowadays, the client or the customer or the patient, they can find you on Twitter, they can find you on email, they can find you on Instagram. So each part of that brand needs to be absolutely in tune with wherever your client comes across you in the digital world, Haley.
Yeah, it needs to be consistent. Your brand needs to be consistent across, like you said, all of the customer touch points. And what I mean by that is, people who obviously go on your social media, it needs to be consistent. Your website needs to be consistent. Even your staff, when people, if you've got a shop, your staff are representing your brand, and so kind of your basic business mission or statements need to be seamlessly across everything. And I think before we go more in depth about that, I think I need to cover the definition of when I say brand, I'm not just talking about a logo. Okay, so a lot of people, just misunderstand this, and I think it's something that if you're not a designer, then you're probably not going to understand it. But a brand basically is everything. And it's basically all the examples, all the customer touch points that I explained just a few minutes ago. A logo is your stamp, it's your trademark, it's not your brand. And so you need to think about everything as a package, not just the logo. And as a graphic designer, what we basically do, or in terms of brand design, we're visualizing all of that, everything. Everything is a package.
Yeah, so carry on. Sorry, I thought you were finished there. Just carry on. Don't let me jump in and interrupt your flow there. You've got it licked there. I couldn't say it better.
Yeah, and the other thing as well, it's about how your customers perceive you. I mean, with a brand, you can influence it, but unfortunately, it's your customers that control that. But I mean, if you're a business and you're telling somebody what it is you do, what your brand's about, then that's what we call marketing. If somebody reiterates that to somebody else, that's kind of word of mouth, and that's kind of confirming that. And then if the customer says, "Yeah, I get that. That's what your business is about," then that's branding. If the customer is basically saying, "Yeah, I get it. That's what you're about," then you've basically, hit the nail on the head there. And that's how you can see how it's successful. If people are connecting with your brand.
Nice. So I'm gonna put you on the spot then. I'm gonna be really evil and put you on the spot, Haley. Can you describe a way in which a brand would not work, for example? Because sometimes looking at the negative sides, or where brands are just not cohesive, or they're not representing the right message for that particular audience, or for that particular client. How does a bad brand? What does a bad brand look like?
Well, I suppose it would be like, so okay, let's take MTV brand as an example, right? Their audience is young, I'd say, possibly outrageous, people who like, Geordie Shore, Catfish, and all that stuff. It's very directed to the youth. They're very successful with how they perceive that, with their style, their statements, and how they get the audience to get engaged. How they would be feeling as if they were trying to accommodate, say, professional lawyer firm as their audience, with how they perceive and who they were trying to target. They're not going to connect with each other, That's how I would perceive that. It'd be somebody that kind of, something quite outrageous, bold, like MTV, trying to market towards conservative, professional lawyers type, that kind of audience. I don't think.
Yeah, so basically, if MTV was to be our client one day, maybe, then we wouldn't be recommending for them to go for pastel colors, for example, or flowery fonts, or kind of how else, kind of soft focus, shimmery type of images. Do you know what I mean? So the whole kind of brand experience needs to be replicated throughout all the different channels and has to have the same kind of perspective and emotional impact. And I think that's what you're talking about with the brand. There's a brand is about an emotional feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that happens before you've even looked at what the words are. So normally the brain, for example, when it's looking at anything, it will determine, what kind of emotion is happening before you've actually had a look at the literature or whatever. So you should be able to tell, and instantly from the design, the colors, the layouts, the fonts, and things like that, there's an overall impression of, is this for 20-year-olds? Is this for 40-year-olds? Is this for gadgets? Is this for professionals, etc.? So all those kind of design elements are pretty crucial for making sure that brand is congruent, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a gut feeling basically. I mean, even as soon as I said the word MTV, there was that kind of cheeky wee smile, and I think that's basically how I would describe that company, and to get another big brand involved, Apple, the first thing I think of is Steve Jobs, and that kind of iconic 2007 launch with the iPhone. You know what I'm talking about? He's all in black and everything's kind of streamlined, clean, and innovative. And how he transformed the mobile phone essentially. And that's kind of another point in terms of branding is don't be scared to be, what's the word, real, authentic. He completely reinvented the mobile phone. If we take even Dyson as well as another brand, everybody was like, oh, you need a vacuum bag, you need this and that. And Dyson just threw all that out of the window and said, nah, we're going to go bagless. You can see all your dirt. He completely transformed his industry as well. So don't be scared to be authentic, and don't be scared to do anything different or you think outrageous. Why not do something outrageous? But obviously, if it's not hurting anybody,
Or if it's right for the brand.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're working with a law firm, for example, you wouldn't be suggesting any kind of wild and wacky kind of designs because that would be incongruent with the brand.
Yeah.
So tell me, Haley, there must be a big kind of challenge for the designer when they're working with clients, because obviously the client might have a very strong perspective about what the website needs to look like, okay? So then from the designer perspective, if you look at the audience that they're trying to influence and you say, no, I disagree. I think that the main emphasis of this design has to be a lot more, punchy or a lot more professional or whatever. How do you guide the owner or the marketing team away from a kind of ego-based brand into a brand that's actually going to be fit for the audience?
Yeah. I suppose evidence really, kind of give some examples of potential competitors or other businesses or brands out there and see and show them kind of, basically it's research, kind of almost benchmarking in a way. We're investigating other brands and we're looking at their audience, so if it's like, this is the type of brand who's targeting these audiences, look how they presented themselves, this works. However, you know, if you look at this brand, you're trying to communicate with that other audience, but you're trying to look like this. They don't have that audience, you know, so it's basically showing them examples, um, evidence basically, or, you know, ask other, you know, get it out there, even just ask.
Mm. And then the other challenge, I mean, because obviously my background is in social media and marketing, my background is not at all to do with image and branding and things like that. So it's been fascinating to work with you and to be able to assist in the communication bit that happens between somebody who's visually literate and then somebody who's visually not. It's the same thing as, like, I think one of the strengths of our organization is that because I'm digitally literate and a lot of our clients are not, people feel comfortable working with us because of the fact that we're able to explain it in kind of easy layman's terms, so they don't have to feel like a complete idiot just because they don't understand, you know, how to work a Facebook ad or how to build engagement on Twitter or things like that. So in terms of visual literacy, how do you find working with people and being able to describe some of these concepts in a way that doesn't make them feel daft?
Well, I try not to complicate things, and for me, it's all about, from the start, it's having a strong brief. You know, and this is where I think the client, if a client's struggling to position their business, basically, you know, if they're not even sure what their target audience is, it can be difficult. So, I mean, the one thing I would say is having a strong brief. And I think it does help businesses figure out what they're about. It's kind of a brief brand strategy session. I think the brief that I always send to you to send to all the lovely clients. Bet they're cursing me with all the questions. Yeah, so I forgot what you asked me now. I went on a tangent.
Dealing with the kind of visual concepts and then being able to break it down into everyday person's ideas.
Yeah, so and one on that first initial meeting, especially with the client as well, this is where I think this is my superpower. You know, as soon as I've met them, I can kind of get the gist of what it is they want, and obviously the brief helps as well.
Okay.
And it's about meaning for me. It needs to mean something.
Nice.
It's almost like a special message, you know?
Amazing. All right, so we've only got 2 minutes left to go now. So do you have anything you would particularly like to say before we wrap up? And has anybody got any particular questions for Hayley as well? Because we don't necessarily want to be going on for too long. This is the first in a series of lots of Facebook Lives we're going to be doing from Supersize Media headquarters, and obviously Hayley's headquarters there too. And we shall be hopefully putting in lots and lots of really useful content and tips and strategies for people to learn how to actually build their businesses effectively. You'll often see me on Radio Scotland or in Downing Street speaking to all the people who are desperate to learn. But for everybody who's watching us on Facebook Live, here is your chance right here, right now, to have a live consultation and ask us anything you want about branding, web design, social media, etc., etc. So Hayley, carry on. Do you have any particular last minute points before we wrap up?
Ooh, last minute points. So so as I said before, I'm gonna reinforce this, is get creative, guys. Honestly, there's no harm in it. Creating really engaging content as well for your audience. Just create an amazing experience. That's all about. And a few tips, you can even just my favorite all-time YouTube influencers at the moment. I'm a big DIY girl. Love it. I wish I had the time to actually do it. But check out the Sorry Girls, right? They have an amazing channel on Instagram. What they do now is they ask the audience what they want, right? And they're including that. You know, you can see them in their videos as well. Have we polls, quizzes, stuff like that. Just get your customers involved in your brand, make them a part of it, and they'll love you for it.
Exactly. Yeah. So first of all, you need to be providing incredible amounts of value, incredible amounts of suspense as well. We don't want banter. We don't want chit chat. We want value, value, value all the way. And then, of course, loads and loads and loads of engagement and interaction, because if you're not getting engagement on social media, you're not doing social media. All right, on that note, it's now 30 minutes past and we are going to wrap up. So please feel free to add any of your questions. We will be scooping them up over the next couple of days as well. And don't forget to ask any questions you need at all to do with social media, digital marketing, websites, branding, etc., etc. So it just leaves me to say thank you very much, Miss Haley.
Anytime. This was fun. I'm still looking forward to this again.
Let's meet again next week.